Hello everybody, welcome back once again. I've got another Clair Obscur Expedition 33 video for you here. This time we're going to be talking about the Act 2 weapons for Verso. Very minor spoiler. If you haven't played through Act 1, I would hold off on this. But if you're still here, of course that spoiler is that Verso replaces Gustav. Obviously, then he also does inherit all of his weapons. So things like the Cruelrum, Verso can use this, but also, of course, then all these weapons get weapon abilities because, of course, Gustav actually doesn't get any weapon abilities during Act 1. So, anyways, the very first weapon that we can kind of obtain for Verso in Act 1 is his initial equipment, which is the Verso. There isn't that much to talk about other than the fact that this weapon is actually extremely powerful for the beginning of Act 2. It's most likely going to be the highest level weapon that you have access to. And also, just because of the way Verso works and his perfection, this actually does stay a decent weapon for a while. Mostly also just because Verso... it's pretty easy for him to cap out his damage early on in Act 2 anyway. And of course, having a weapon that's got such a good raw power stat, of course, is going to, more easily help him hit the damage cap. So I should say my first expert playthrough that I did, of course, I took out Sprung at the beginning of Act 2, and the weapon that I used was the Verso for that. So again, once you hit rank S, you're hitting the damage cap anyway, so it doesn't really matter, what your weapons that you're using. But again, I used that Verso very early on there for a bit. All right. Also, I should say that I'm going to be bringing up these weapons in the order that you can actually obtain them. So the next one that you can obtain in Act 2 is the Corpesso. Now, this one is very difficult, though. Probably, honestly, the most difficult of his weapons to obtain in Act 2. And that's because you have to defeat the Noir enemies. Of course, those are found on the Dark Shores. And I highly recommend at least going to the Forgotten Battlefield first to do the Gradient Counters tutorial. Otherwise, of course, those Noirs are going to be able to throw their dark spears at you, and you're not going to be able to counter them. So, again, highly recommend if you want to try to get the Corpesso early on to go do that Noir. Or I'm sorry, go watch that that tutorial and then come back. But that said, the Corpesso probably is the most powerful weapon in terms of his Act 2 stuff, and honestly, I would say probably kind of breaks Act 2, just kind of in general. For instance, once you've got the Corpesso, if you go into the Forgotten Battlefield, Verso can pretty much wipe out entire groups of enemies just by himself, assuming that you've got the Dead Energy, Pictos abilities equipped. So, very much breaks the early Act 2, I would argue. So I guess if you enjoy a challenge, maybe skip the Corpesso. But anyways, let's talk about the abilities. I should start off with the agility scaling. Obviously, I always really like that. I always build agility and agility and luck early on in Act 2 with my character. So I definitely like that. Base attack applying 2 burn stacks per rank, though. I don't get a whole lot of use out of that. Though I will say that if you're, in what I would recommend using the Corpesso for, well, is just kind of in general using it during Act 2. But I find that this weapon is very good for random encounters. And of course, if you're blowing all of your AP on free aim shots, then you might as well use the base attack once all of your AP is gone. So you're going to get a little bit of benefit out of that. 1 AP on rank up, that's cool, right? Extra AP here or there is nice. Yeah, so that's an okay ability. But then they're increasing burn damage by 50% per rank up to 300% on rank S. I don't find this that useful, only because it's, again, we're hitting the damage cap so easily during Act 2 anyway that you're just not really going to get that much use out of that. I think that ability specifically is probably better or much better during Act 3. So that is the Corpesso. Next up is the Duliso. This is actually acquired in the Forgotten Battlefield, of course, at the end by defeating the Duelist. Very interesting weapon, and has some, pretty neat uses. I would say that it's actually good for both random encounters and during boss battles. You just have to kind of use it in a little bit of a different way, right? So during the random encounters, I find that it's useful, of course, to do free aim shots and then use that base attack once you've used up all your AP. Of course, there are also a lot of Pictos related to base attack. So like combo attack, for instance, works really well with this. There's also one of the Pictos that does defenseless whenever you do inflicts the defenseless status effect on your enemy when you use a base attack. So there's just a lot of stuff that synergizes really well with the Duliso in terms of Pictos abilities. I should say, maybe I should say Lumina abilities, right? Anyways, next up there is the 50% increased base attack damage. That's obviously very good. This thing is based around using your base. It synergizes really well if you're using that base attack. So an extra 50%. Yeah, that's great, right? And then the next thing there is the base attack giving for perfection. Of course, that's another, just a nice little bonus for using that base attack. I do not like the scaling, though, on this. I don't build defense or vitality on my characters, so I don't find that the scaling on this is to my liking. But next up, the Serum. So this thing is available in the Coastal Cave before going to Minoko Station from the Crueler Merchant. I think that this is very much more oriented towards random encounters, and the reason I say that, I should say also, let's talk first though, agility scaling. Again, always a good thing. I like building my characters with agility, so I appreciate that. +1 to all perfection gain, but can't reach rank S. That's why I don't like this for boss encounters. It's just once you get to rank S, you're most likely capped out on damage, at any point during Act 2, right? So I don't like not being able to hit rank S, so I don't really like that. So this gets you, it ranks you up a little bit quicker, but it lowers your maximum damage, so I don't really like that. But that said, you're probably not hitting rank S very often with, the random encounters. So again, I think that's gearing this weapon more towards those. Base attack giving for perfection, of course, blow all your AP on free aim shots, then use your base attack to get that extra perfection. But then the 20% increased light damage with skills. I don't know how likely it is that you're going to get that ability during Act 2 anyway, but, Verso does have a lot of abilities, for one thing, that are based off of light damage, and then on top of that he has other abilities that use his weapon's element. So you're gonna get a decent amount of damage extra with this thing because of that. But again, how likely that is for you to happen during Act 2 is not real high. So next up is the Glacesso. So the first one is available actually before going to Old Lumiere. There's the Chalier, Pellerin, and Reaper Cultist battle out on the world map, and that'll give you a rank 9 Glacesso. I actually really like this weapon, but if you're gonna use this, I would definitely recommend at least going into Frozen Hearts and taking out one of the Pellerins there. Because that will level this thing up to level 21 for free, and that is huge, right? So 9 to 21 is a really nice jump. Frozen Hearts, though, to be fair, is a very difficult area of the game, and takes some real effort to take down that stuff. But even if you don't want to complete the whole Frozen Hearts dungeon, you can of course just go in, take out one of the Pellerin, and get yourself a leveled up Glacesso. So luck scaling, obviously something that I really like, and then +1 perfection on critical hits. This thing, I should say, is based around crits, so Generally, I have my Verso during Act 2 at a 75% crit rate because I build luck first. And then oftentimes I'm using critical burn, the Lumina ability or Pictos ability, however you want to look at that, which is going to get him to the other 25%, right? So then he'll be at 100%. Of course, that does take some support from someone like Lune or maybe Mael, right, to actually get that burn status on. But of course, one correction on crit hits, that's going to be helping you get those ranks. Self-heal by 2% health on dealing a critical hit. That's cool. I generally don't take damage because I try to parry everything, but it can be useful, if you take the stray hit here or there to get you a little bit healthy. And of course, again, with a 100% crit rate, that's always going to be triggering. Counterattack is always a critical hit. Again, kind of same thing though. Once you're at the 20 or the 75% crit rate and you've got things burning and you've got critical burn active, you're not going to get any benefit to this, but sometimes burn falls off. So kind of nice to be getting those crits on counters. But that's the Glacesso. I would say that of the weapons of Act 2, Glacesso is probably third, maybe even second in terms of power, just because it's fairly easy to get a hold of this thing and level it up again to 21 in Frozen Hearts. So Glacesso, again, great in combination, or I should say similar to the Corpesso, just in very, very strong weapons to get a hold of. All right, next up is the Cultum. Cultum actually very similar to the Glacesso in that it requires a trip into Frozen Hearts. Unfortunately, though, for the Cultum, not just a trip, I should say, it requires completing Frozen Hearts because you need the Eternal Ice from Gargant. Then we take that, of course, Eternal Ice to Minoko Station, to the Grandest Merchant, and that's where you can buy the Cultum. This actually is my favorite weapon, though, for Act 2. I really, really like the abilities on it. And so, big fan of the Cultum. Starts out at level 21. It has agility scaling. The level 4 ability I don't find that useful for myself, but again, that's because I try to parry everything. It says there, no perfection loss on damage taken, but perfection is instead lost on being healed. Now, that's really, really good if you take a hit or two, right? Like if you're very, very good at either dodging or parrying, but you don't plan on needing to be healed, right? You can take a hit or two here or there. You won't lose the perfection. And of course, you won't then lose the perfection because you don't heal yourself. So, but I don't find the level 4 ability that useful, whereas the level 10 and 20 abilities are fantastic. Gain 2 AP on counterattack. That's probably a no-brainer. Again, if you're parrying, you're going to get a ton of extra AP because of this weapon, which of course is then going to make it easier for him to keep using what I like to do is use Steeled Strike, right? It's obviously his highest damaging ability as long as you can counter. So then, of course, gaining 1 rank on counterattack, that is so big. Really gets you to rank S very, very quickly. And of course, even if you do take a hit or two, drop a rank, then if you're able to, parry, you can get that rank right back because of that. So again, my favorite weapon for Act 2, and, not easy to get though. So next up is the Dancesso. All right, so this one is very interesting. It actually is acquired. You have to go all the way through Old Lumiere, and then you can go back in and face the Chromatic Danseuse. Now, to be honest, though, I do not recommend doing that. I think that it's best to save the Chromatic Danseuse battle until Act 3. And the reason for that is the Chromatic Danseuse is the best way to farm Color of Lumina in the game, in my opinion. But unfortunately, it's not efficient to farm it during Act 2. So, again, that's my recommendation. Take that as you wish. But again, I would definitely recommend holding off on this until Act 3. That said, agility scaling, luck scaling, I of course like that. Base attack giving 1 perfection per burn on the target. That's cool. More so, especially if you're running around with Lune and Mael, who are, you know, very good at putting burn stacks on enemies. So, and then there it says, while powerful, 20% chance to burn on hit. That's okay. I don't really do that much with Verso in terms of powerful. I really don't like to use his buff because I just don't think he really needs it. And in terms of, at least in terms of Act 2, right? Because it's just, again, so easy for him to hit the damage cap anyway that I don't really use that powerful that much. So 20% chance to burn on hit though, so that's cool. If you are running around with powerful, you do, you know, buff him up with either himself or maybe even CL, right? Can I believe do powerful with, I think she can anyway. I can't remember though if she. I barely ever use CL, so I can't really say for sure if. Actually, let me just check. I wanna be sure that I'm not wrong on that. It's her buff ability, which is it Rush? No, it's not Rush. All set. Yeah, Shell, Powerful, and Rush. Okay, that's what I thought. So yeah, that can be a good way to get Powerful on him as well if you don't want to do it yourself, right? Because obviously, Verso has the ability to give Powerful to himself. But anyways, lastly, they're 1 AP on rank up. That's okay. Again, you know, a little bit of extra AP doesn't hurt, certainly. But that's Dan says, so again, highly recommend waiting until Act 3 to get that. All right, next up is the Bloodum. Don't really like this one that much, but I do like the agility scaling, so I'll credit where credit's due there. Perfection is now based on current health. Gain 1 rank every 20% missing health. That can actually synergize fairly well with his overcharge ability because, of course, that sets him at 1 or sets him to 1 health. And then, of course, you know, at Death's Door can synergize with this very well. Also, that said, though, again, it's just so easy for Verso to get damage capped anyway. You know, I don't find that this weapon and that ability very useful, but it is certainly interesting. But then 20% increased light damage with skills. Again, I already talked about this with the serum, right? Verso just has a lot of damage that's based off of light skills. So, of course, 20% extra is fairly decent, though, again, broken record here, but it's very easy for him to get damage capped out during Act 2 anyway. So I don't find that to be all that useful. Plus 1 AP on rank up. Again, always nice to get a little bit of extra AP, I would say. So, yeah, why not, right? All right, so that is the Bloodum. Next up is the Contorso. Now, this is one of the very interesting weapons, and special comment here, again, about that Chromatic Danseuse battle that I recommended waiting to get the Dansesso for. Reason for that is, again, during Act 3, with the Contorso at level 20, it's the most efficient way to farm Color of Lumina because of the level 20 ability there, triggering the Lightning Strike on critical hits. The reason why that works so well is because when you're fighting the Chromatic Danseuse, of course it summons clones, and then every time you kill one of its clones, it drops 5 Color of Lumina for you. And then on top of that, if you do the kill shot and it's a crit and you trigger that lightning strike, it counts as 2 kills. It's sort of buggy, at least it seems like a bit of a bug to me. Again, giving you the double kill essentially, which of course then doubles up your Color of Lumina. But fantastic weapon, of course, because of that. But anyways, agility scaling I like. Switch to rank S on break and base attack can break. That's interesting, though I don't really find that very useful. Mostly basically because, again, in Act 2, I'm mostly using Steeled Strike with Verso, and I don't want to be using his turns on, you know, doing base attacks. Though that said, you know, if you don't have enough AP to start your Steeled Strike, then sure, right? Why not do that base attack? But the chances are that you're going to have an enemy's break bar completely full, also not have enough AB to use Steel Strike. It's just the conditions for me wanting to use that are very slim. So don't find that useful. 100% crit chance on rank S, that's cool, but I already generally roll around with about 100% crit rate for Verso during Act 2 anyway. But again, like I said earlier, sometimes that burn status falls off and you lose the 25% from critical burn, so can be nice. And then again, triggers the lightning strike on critical hits, just extra damage. And then of course, for farming those Color of Lumina, that's just phenomenal. So very, very good weapon. Also, I should say, found in the Visages, if I didn't already state that, found in the Visages dungeon from the Contortionist enemy there. All right, next up is the Confuso, another very interesting weapon here, found in Visages. Really good scaling, agility, and luck. I like that. Light damage can burn on critical hits. Now, I think the Confuso is very, very good for random encounters. Certainly also for boss battles, but I would say more during Act 3. But that said, very much a weapon-oriented, I would argue, towards free aim shots. Light damage can burn on critical hits. All right, so this already does light damage. Of course, we're going to be critting a ton because, again, I always keep Verso's crit rate around 75% and then get that extra burn damage from critical burn. I'm sorry, get that extra crit rate from a critical burn. So we're generally going to be rolling around with 100% crit. And yeah, obviously then every time you shoot something with a free aim shot, you're going to be adding a burn stack. So you can really, really put the stacks on there. And there it says apply 3 burn instead of mark. Now I think that synergizes very, very well with the marking shots Pictos. Of course, it will mark, but if you're using the Confuso, you'll just do 3 burn stacks instead. So again, I think that's very, very cool. And then the bottom ability there, it says increases burn damage by 50% per rank, up to 300% on rank S. Again, I just think that this is very much a weapon more geared towards free aim shots, but also Act 3. It's just already so easy to cap out. I, again, feel like a broken record here. But very easy to cap out Verso's damage during Act 2 anyway. So I don't think the extra burn damage is really going to do you that much good. I'm sorry. I don't think the extra damage from that level 20 ability is going to do you much good. So, but again, very, very good for Act 3. Next up is the Cereso. So Cereso is probably my least favorite weapon, certainly of the ones from Act 2. And that's mostly because this is geared towards Verso as a support player. This is found in Serene, the Serene dungeon from the Chromatic Greatsword Cultist. I do like the agility scaling, but I don't like much else about it. It says the bonus damage from Perfection applies to all allies at half value. Bonus damage no longer applies to Verso. I just don't think that that's good. Again, Verso is the top damage dealer during Act 2 if you can parry. Again, because of Steeled Strike. It's a very efficient AP-wise, and you also get 13 hits out of it. But again, unfortunately, though, it does take the 2 hits. And so, obviously, you start charging it on turn 1, and then you get the damage portion when his turn rolls around again. The problem, of course, is if you do get hit in the middle there, you will lose all of the damage and the AP. So, again, good if you can parry. But that said, if you do want to use Verso as more of a support role, this may be the weapon for you because, of course, it's going to split his damage or give his damage to the other 2 characters, essentially. Or part of his damage, I should say. Perfection gain is increased by 1 while powerful. Again, probably synergizes fairly well with a support role for Verso. Of course, he has the powerful buff that he can give to everybody, which then would trigger the extra perfection gain. And then support skills costing 1 less AP. Again, obviously geared towards a support role for him, but not something that I would recommend, but if you want to try that out, give it a rip. Lastly is the Dreamesso. So this weapon is found towards the very end of Act 2. Of course, that's in the Monolith and the Clair Obscur battle. Very, very good weapon, though. I love the scaling, of course, agility and luck. Gaining 1 rank on counterattack, so that's very similar. I should say it's the same ability as the Cultum, so I really like that. 50% increased counterattack damage. I don't find that to be that useful, though. Again, broken record here because it's just so easy for Verso to cap out on damage during Act 2 anyway. But then the level 20 ability is the gain 2 AP on counterattack, which I absolutely love as someone who enjoys parrying a lot. So very, very good weapon for Act 2. Kind of a shame that we get it so late, but them's the breaks, as they say. So that is it for Verso. That is all of his weapons for Act 2. Again, my top pick is the Cultum. Probably the runner-up would be the Corpesso because it's just so game-breaking, or I should say Act 2 breaking, if you're able to get that thing early on. So those are my picks. As always, I hope the guide was helpful, and thanks for watching.